My boss framed me for embezzlement. I deleted the entire database before leaving. I am typing this with hands that are literally shaking. I don't even know if I'm looking for legal advice or just need to scream into the void, but I think I just nuked my entire career, and possibly my freedom, in a span of 5 minutes. I've been a senior systems administrator for a mid-sized logistics firm for about 6 years. It was a good job until Marcus came along. Marcus is the CEO's nephew, a man who wears suits that cost more than my car and thinks the cloud is literal water vapor. He took over as VP of operations 6 months ago. Since then, it's been hell. Budget cuts, micromanagement, and weird requests for access levels he has no business having. Yesterday, Friday afternoon at 4:30 p.m., Marcus called me into his office. The blinds were drawn, which was the first red flag. He didn't offer me a seat. He stood behind his desk, looking grim, and told me that an internal audit had flagged irregularities in the procurement accounts. He said that over $50,000 had been siphoned off into an offshore account, and the digital logs pinned the transfers directly to my admin credentials. I felt like the floor had dropped out from under me. I told him that was impossible, that I would never touch company funds, and that anyone with half a brain knows I make enough money not to risk jail for 50 grand. He didn't listen. He smirked, I swear to God, he smirked, and said that he had already spoken to HR and legal. He told me I was being terminated for cause, effective immediately, and that if I made a scene, he'd call the police right then and there. Then it hit me. 2 weeks ago, Marcus had demanded my root password because he claimed he needed to audit the server logs for a board meeting and the regular viewer wasn't working. I was hesitant, but he threatened to fire me for insubordination. I gave it to him. He used my own credentials to steal the money, and now he was pinning it on me to cover his tracks. I looked at him, realizing he was going to ruin my life to pay for his gambling debts or whatever vacuous lifestyle he led. I asked him if he really thought he could get away with this. He leaned forward and whispered that nobody would believe the IT guy over the VP, and that I should just leave quietly before he pressed charges. I walked out of his office. I didn't go to the elevator. I went to my desk. I had about 3 minutes before they cut my access. I logged into the main server cluster. We host our own databases for client inventory and shipping manifests, terabytes of irreplaceable data. I didn't look at the files. I just opened the terminal. I typed in the command to wipe the primary database structures and, crucially, the encryption keys for the offsite backups. I hit enter. The screen flickered. A wall of text scrolled by as years of work vanished into the digital void. I stood up, took my jacket, and walked out the front door just as my phone buzzed with an alert that the server was unreachable. I am sitting in my car 3 blocks away. I am terrified. I know I was framed, but I also know I just destroyed millions of dollars worth of data. Did I just hand in the victory, or did I buy myself leverage? What do I do when the police show up? Commenter 1. OP, you need to stop posting and get a lawyer yesterday. You might have been innocent of the embezzlement, but you just confessed to a serious cybercrime on the internet. Destruction of company property, unauthorized access, since you were technically fired moments before, and damages that could be in the millions. The frame-up is a civil/criminal issue for him, but what you did is a felony for you. Shut up and lawyer up. Commenter 2. I want to high-five you and shake you at the same time. The dead man's switch is a fantasy we all have, but actually doing it? Man. If they can prove you did it after you were fired, you are in deep trouble. However, if the logs show Marcus used your credentials for the money, you might be able to prove he had access to do everything, including the wipe. It's a messy defense, but it's something. Commenter 3. Honestly? Legend. If he wants to pin the theft on you using your credentials, let him explain why you also deleted the database. It forces a forensic investigation that might expose his theft. If the database is gone, the evidence of his transfer might be gone too, but so is the company's ability to function. You essentially held a grenade and pulled the pin. Good luck, soldier. Update 1, 72 hours later. I didn't sleep at all on Friday night. Every time a car drove past my apartment, I thought it was the cops coming to kick down my door. I took the advice from the comments and found a criminal defense attorney on Saturday morning. Let's call him Saul. Saul is expensive, looks like he hasn't slept in a week, and told me to shut my mouth and let him do the talking. I told Saul everything. I told him about the password request, the meeting, the frame-up, and the deletion. He rubbed his temples for a solid minute before speaking. He told me that I was an idiot for deleting the database, but that I might have accidentally created a situation so chaotic that we could maneuver through it. He said that right now, The company is likely in full panic mode and might not have contacted the authorities yet because they are trying to recover the data. Monday morning, today, the phone calls started. I had 47 missed calls by 10 a.m. Half were from the company mainline, and half were from a number I recognized as Marcus's personal cell. I didn't answer. I sat in Saul's office, drinking stale coffee, while we waited for the inevitable legal threat. Around noon, an email came through to my personal account. It wasn't from legal. It was from the CEO, Marcus's uncle. Let's call him Robert. The subject line was simply, "We need to talk." I showed it to Saul. He read it and told me this was a good sign. If they had gone straight to the FBI, we wouldn't be getting emails from the CEO, we'd be getting a knock on the door. Saul replied on my behalf, stating that all communication must go through him. An hour later, my lawyer's phone rang. It was the company's general counsel. Saul put it on speaker so I could hear, but signaled for me to stay silent. The general counsel sounded stressed. She said that the company had suffered a catastrophic data event and that they were willing to overlook certain recent administrative errors if I would come in and assist with the data recovery. She claimed that it was a technical glitch that coincidentally happened right after my departure. I almost laughed out loud. They didn't know I did it intentionally yet. Or maybe they did, but they were too desperate to care. They needed the encryption keys. Without them, their client data is just random noise. Saul replied calmly. He told her that I had been terminated for cause regarding allegations of embezzlement, and therefore I had no obligation to assist the company. He also mentioned that since I was accused of financial crimes, I was focusing on my defense and couldn't be distracted by IT support tickets. There was a long silence on the other end. Then the lawyer dropped the bomb. She said that if I didn't cooperate, they would press charges for the embezzlement and the data destruction. She mentioned that new evidence had been found linking me to the WIC. I felt the blood drain from my face. I looked at Saul. He didn't flinch. He told her that we would welcome a full forensic audit of the systems, specifically the access logs regarding the financial transfers and the administrative login history for the past 2 weeks. He said that we were confident that a third-party investigation would reveal inconsistencies regarding who was actually using my credentials. He hung up. I asked him what happens now. He told me that we just called their bluff. If they bring in forensic investigators to prove I wiped the database, those same investigators are going to see Marcus's IP address or device ID logged in as me during the time the money was stolen. But then, about 2 hours ago, things got personal. I was at the grocery store, trying to buy food and pretend my life wasn't collapsing, when Marcus approached me in the parking lot. I don't know how he found me, probably followed me from the lawyer's office. He looked terrible. His perfect hair was messy, and he was sweating. He blocked my car door and got right in my face. He hissed that I had ruined everything. He said the company is losing $100,000 an hour because the trucks can't move without the manifests. He told me that if I didn't give him the encryption keys immediately, he would make sure I died in prison. He grabbed my arm. I pulled away and shouted for him to get back. A few people looked over, and he backed off, looking around nervously. He lowered his voice and said, "Look, fix the database, and the embezzlement charge goes away. I'll tell my uncle it was a clerical error. I'll even write you a severance check. Just give me the keys." I stared at him. The audacity of this man. He tries to frame me, fires me, and now wants me to save his ass? I told him I didn't know what he was talking about and that he should speak to my lawyer. I got in my car and locked the door. As I drove away, I saw him kicking the tire of his Porsche in a rage. He just offered me a way out. If I restore the data, I still have the keys memorized. Obviously, he drops the embezzlement frame up. I walk away clean, maybe even with some cash. But if I do that, he gets away with stealing the money, and he stays in power. If I refuse, the company might collapse, innocent people lose their jobs, and I risk him doubling down on the frame-up with his uncle's money behind him. Do I take the deal? Or do I burn him to the ground? Commenter 1. Do not trust him. I repeat, do not trust him. If you restore that data, you lose your only leverage. The second the system is back up, he will have you arrested. He's desperate because he knows he's screwed. He's trying to trick you. Record everything. Tell your lawyer about the parking lot confrontation immediately. Commenter 2. This is getting spicy. Look, the moral thing is to think about the other employees. If the company goes under, regular people lose their livelihoods. But Marcus is a snake. If you help him, get it in writing, signed by the CEO and notarized, with immunity from prosecution. A handshake deal in a parking lot is worth nothing. Commenter 3. He kicked his Porsche? Love that for him. Listen to you/burn it down _88. This guy is panicking. He's trying to destroy the evidence of his own incompetence in theft. If you restore the DB, you might be restoring the logs that prove he stole the money, but he might also have time to scrub them properly this time. Keep the leverage. Let the forensic team come in. The truth is your only shield now. Update 2, 8 days after the incident. It's been over a week, and things have gone from messy legal dispute to national news story. I didn't take the deal. I told Marcus to go to hell, drove off, and immediately called Saul. Now, my face is on the local news. The company, let's call them Logie Corp, released a statement claiming they were the victim of a targeted cyber attack by a disgruntled former employee. They didn't mention the embezzlement. They didn't mention the frame-up. They just painted me as a digital arsonist who held the company hostage because I got fired. The narrative is working. I'm the villain. I'm currently staying at my brother's house because reporters were camping out on my front lawn. My phone number has been leaked, and I'm getting death threats from strangers who think I'm the reason their packages are delayed. But the worst part isn't the strangers, it's my former team. My junior admin, a kid I trained from scratch, texted me yesterday, "Dude, we just got furloughed. Indefinitely. I have a baby coming in 3 months. Why did you do it?" That broke me. I almost called Robert, the CEO, right then and there to give up the keys. But Saul stopped me. He reminded me that if I give up the keys now, without a signed immunity deal, I'm just handing them the evidence to convict me of the wipe while Marcus scrubs the evidence of his theft. We are in a standoff. The company is bleeding cash. Rumor has it they are losing major contracts to competitors. They hired a heavy-hitter forensic firm, Securemax, to try and crack the encryption or recover the data from the raw platters. Good luck with that. I used AES 256 encryption and shredded the keys. Unless they have a quantum computer hiding in the basement, that data is indistinguishable from static. Yesterday, the police finally made their move. I was at my brother's kitchen table eating cereal when a loud banging shook the front door. Police. Search warrant. My brother, God bless him, looked terrified. I opened the door, and 6 officers pushed past me. They didn't arrest me. Saul had arranged for me to surrender voluntarily if charged, but they had a warrant for all my electronics. They took everything. My laptop, my desktop rig, my phone, even my old PlayStation. They bagged it all. I stood there in my pajamas, watching them dismantle my digital life. Marcus must have pushed the cyberterrorism angle hard to get a judge to sign off on this so quickly. After they left, I had to use my brother's burner phone to call Saul. He sounded grim. He said the DA is looking at pressing charges for unauthorized computer access with intent to defraud and felony destruction of property. But then Saul told me something interesting. He'd been talking to the Securemax lead investigator. Apparently, the forensic team is confused. They found the logs of the deletion, obviously. But they also found gaps in the transaction logs regarding the procurement accounts, the exact accounts Marcus raided. Because I wiped the database, the detailed history is gone. But the system metadata, the stuff that tracks file sizes and modification times, showed that the procurement ledger files were accessed and modified manually by a root user 2 hours before I was fired. The forensic guy knows something smells fishy. He told Saul, off the record, it looks like a cover-up went wrong, and then the building blew up. I'm losing the PR war. My friends hate me, the public thinks I'm a monster, and the police have my hardware. However, the forensics team suspects foul play beyond just my wipe. Saul thinks we should go on the offensive, release a public statement telling my side of the story, accusing the VP of embezzlement. But if I do that, I admit to the wipe publicly, which I haven't technically done yet, legally speaking. If I stay silent, the cyber-terrorist narrative solidifies. Do I leak the story to the press? Or do I keep my mouth shut and let the forensics team dig? Commenter 1. Do not go to the press. You are not a sympathetic character right now. You destroyed a company. If you go public, you just confirm you did it. The general public won't understand the nuance of I deleted it to stop him from framing me. They will just hear I deleted it. Let the forensics team do their job. If they are already suspicious, that is your golden ticket. Let them find the rot. Commenter 2. The police seizing your hardware is bad, but expected. Did you have the keys stored on those devices? If you did, and they crack your personal password, they get the keys, restore the DB, and you lose your leverage. If the keys were only in your head, you're safe. As for the procurement logs, metadata never lies. Marcus was sloppy. He modified the files before the wipe. Hold the line. The pressure is on them, not you. Commenter 3. The text from your junior admin is gut-wrenching, but you can't help him if you're in jail. If you cave now, Marcus wins, you go to prison, and he probably fires your team anyway to cut costs. The only way to save everyone is to expose Marcus. You need to get that forensic report to the CEO. Bypass Marcus entirely. Update 3:14 days after the incident. I didn't go to the press. I stayed quiet. And it turns out, silence is loud. 2 days after the police raid, the silence broke. I was sitting in Saul's office, which has become my second home, when his receptionist buzzed in. Robert is on the line. The CEO. He wants to speak to you, specifically. Saul put it on speaker. Robert didn't sound angry. He sounded exhausted. He's an old-school guy, built the company from one truck to a fleet. Son, Robert said, his voice cracking. We are 10 days away from bankruptcy. The insurance won't pay out because they're claiming it was an insider act, which isn't covered under our current policy. I have 300 employees whose paychecks are going to bounce on Friday. Marcus tells me you're a criminal who wants to watch the world burn. But I've known you for 6 years. You've come to my house for the Christmas party. You fixed my wife's iPad. This doesn't make sense. I looked at Saul. He nodded. Robert, I said, my voice trembling. I didn't steal the money. Marcus did. He used my account to siphon 50 grand, and he was planning to pin it on me. I wiped the database to stop him from falsifying the logs further. I know how it looks, but I was scared. There was a long pause. Marcus's family, Robert said, his tone hardening slightly. That's a heavy accusation. Check the metadata, I shot back, feeling a surge of adrenaline. Ask the Securmax team about the modification timestamps on the procurement ledger from the afternoon I was fired. Ask them why the root account was accessing financial records 2 hours before I was even called into the office. Robert was silent for a full 10 seconds. If you're lying to me, I will spend every penny I have left to ensure you never see the sun again. But, if you're telling the truth, I can restore the data, I interrupted. I have the keys memorized. But I won't do it until I have a signed agreement. Full immunity for the data destruction, and an independent investigation into Marcus's finances. Come to the office, Robert said. Tomorrow morning. 9 a.m. Bring your lawyer. Marcus will be there. We're going to settle this. I hung up. My heart was pounding so hard I thought I was having a stroke. The next morning, yesterday, we went to the Lobby Corp HQ. Walking back into that building was surreal. The warehouse floor, usually buzzing with forklifts and shouting, was dead silent. A few workers were sitting on pallets, looking dejected. They glared at me as I walked past with Saul. I felt like throwing up. We went to the boardroom. Robert sat at the head of the table. Marcus was to his right, looking smug but twitchy. The company's general counsel was there, along with a guy in a hoodie who I assumed was the lead forensic investigator from Securmax. Marcus spoke first. Uncle Rob, we shouldn't even be talking to him. This is blackmail. Robert ignored him. He looked at the forensic guy. What did you find? The forensic guy, let's call him Dave, didn't look up from his laptop. Well, the database is toasted. AS-256. Unrecoverable without the key. However, Dave tapped a few keys and projected a chart onto the wall. We analyzed the server's system-level journaling. It tracks who logged in and when, independent of the database itself. Marcus shifted in his seat. At 2:15 p.m. on Friday, Dave continued, the user account admin_OP logged in. This session originated from the internal IP ending in .105. Dave looked at me, then at Marcus. OP's workstation IP is .105. However, at 2:15 p.m., the building security logs show OP was in the server room conducting a hardware replacement. There are cameras. He wasn't at his desk. I remembered that. I was swapping out a faulty fan in the rack. So who was at his desk? Robert asked. Nobody, Dave said. But the IP .105 was being spoofed. We traced the MAC address of the machine that actually initiated the connection. It was a laptop registered to the executive subnet. Dave pointed a laser pointer at the screen. Specifically, the device assigned to the VP of operations. The room went absolute zero. Marcus stood up, slamming his hands on the table. This is bullshit. He hacked my laptop. He's the IT guy, he can spoof whatever he wants. Sit down, Marcus, Robert said. His voice was quiet, which made it terrifying. No. Marcus shouted. You're going to listen to this tech trash over your own blood? He deleted the database. That's the crime here. He's distracting you. I deleted the database because you were framing me. I yelled back, finally losing my cool. You stole the money, and you thought you could pin it on the IT guy because you think you're smarter than everyone else. But you forgot that the server keeps logs of the logs. Enough. Robert barked. He looked at me. Can you bring the system back? Right now? Yes, I said. But I need the paper. Saul slid a document across the table. It was the immunity agreement. It stated that LogiCorp would decline to press charges and request the DA drop the case in exchange for full data restoration. Robert picked up a pen. Uncle Rob, don't, Marcus pleaded. He looked desperate now. If you sign that, he walks free. He cost us millions. And if I don't sign it, Robert said, looking Marcus dead in the eye, the company dies today. And if this report is true, you cost us millions. Robert signed the paper. He pushed it back to Saul. Then he slid his laptop toward me. Fix it. I sat down. I opened the terminal. My hands were shaking, but the muscle memory took over. I typed in the decryption string. It was a 64-character passphrase I had memorized using a mnemonic device involving the lyrics to Bohemian Rhapsody. I hit enter. The progress bar appeared. Decrypting. 1%. 5%. It's working, Dave said. And then, the screen turned red. Error, integrity check failed. Primary header corrupted. My stomach dropped. I tried the backup key. Error, backup mismatch. I froze. I typed frantically, checking the file structure. The data was there, but it was garbled. Something had happened to the encrypted files after I left. They had been overwritten. I looked up at Marcus. He had a look of pure, unadulterated panic on his face, but underneath it, a flicker of triumph. What's wrong? Robert asked, standing up. It's not working, I stammered. The keys are correct, but the data files, they've been corrupted. Someone tried to force a recovery and scrambled the headers. I looked at Dave, the forensic guy. Did you guys write to the disk? No. Dave said, looking offended. We work on images, never the live drive. We haven't touched the RAID array. If you guys didn't touch it. I turned slowly to Marcus. Marcus was backing away toward the door. I told you he was incompetent. He can't even fix what he broke. I'm calling the police. Wait, Dave said. He was typing furiously. The logs show a manual mount of the drives occurred on Saturday night. Remote access. Someone tried to run a third-party decryption tool. A cheap one. It rewrote the headers and corrupted the volume. Saturday night? Robert asked. Who has remote access besides OP? Dave looked at the screen. The VP of Operations account. All eyes turned to Marcus. He was at the door, hand on the handle. I was trying to fix it. Marcus screamed, his voice cracking. I was trying to save the company while you idiots sat around. I found a tool online. You tried to brute force the encryption, I said, realizing the magnitude of his stupidity. And you didn't mount it as read-only. You bricked the database. Permanently. The silence that followed was heavier than the first. The database wasn't just encrypted anymore. It was destroyed. Truly destroyed. By Marcus. So, the database is gone. For real this time. I have immunity signed by the CEO for my actions, but the company is effectively dead. Marcus just admitted to accessing the drives and running the tool that killed the data. I'm standing in the boardroom. Robert looks like he's having a heart attack. Marcus looks like he's about to bolt. I technically have my immunity, but the company is ruined. Do I just walk out? Or is there anything, literally anything, a sysadmin can do when the raw bits are scrambled? I feel like I need to do something, or I'm just watching a sinking ship. Commenter 1. Holy, he ran a write mode brute force tool on a live RAID array? Marcus isn't just a thief, he's a technological natural disaster. OP, you are clear. You have the signed immunity. That document is your life raft. Get Saul, take a picture of the document, and leave the room. The ship isn't sinking, it's already at the bottom of the ocean. Commenter 2. Wait, the immunity covers your destruction. Does it cover you if the recovery fails? Read the fine print. If the agreement was in exchange for restoration, and you failed to restore, the contract might be void. Saul needs to weigh in on this immediately before you say another word. Update for 48 hours after the boardroom showdown. I am writing this from my balcony. It's 11 a.m. on a Wednesday, and I am drinking a beer. I don't care. It's over. When I last posted, I was standing in the boardroom. The primary database was scrambled eggs because Marcus, in his infinite wisdom, tried to brute force a decryption on a live RAID array using some shady shareware tool he probably found on page 4 of a Google search. The room was silent. Robert, the CEO, looked like he had aged 10 years in 10 seconds. He slumped into his chair, head in his hands. It's gone. It's all gone. We can't bill. We can't ship. We're finished. Marcus was still near the door, looking like a trapped rat. He pointed a shaking finger at me. He did this. He set a trap. The encryption was a trap. Shut up, Marcus, the general counsel said. She wasn't looking at him, she was reading the forensic report on the screen. You accessed the server remotely on Saturday using your credentials. You executed a write command. You destroyed the evidence of your own theft, and you took the company down with it. My lawyer, Saul, leaned over to me and whispered, the immunity deal says you agree to provide the correct decryption credentials to facilitate recovery. You provided them. The fact that the data is corrupted isn't your problem. We can walk. Right now. I looked at Robert. He was weeping. Not loud sobbing, but silent, shaking tears. I thought about my junior admin with the pregnant wife. I thought about the warehouse guys who just wanted their paychecks. And I remembered something. I didn't have time to post this live, obviously, but this was the decision I faced. I had a shadow environment. It's a violation of company policy to keep unapproved backups, but 3 months ago, when Marcus started cutting budgets, he canceled our off-site redundancy plan to save money. I was paranoid, so I set up a script to dump a snapshot of the database every Sunday night to a dusty old server in the basement we used for testing new code. It wasn't live, and it would be 3 days out of date, but it was something. However, admitting I had an unauthorized server proved I was violating policy, which could theoretically void my severance or get me sued for data mishandling. Saul told me to let it burn. I didn't listen to Saul. Commenter 1. You absolute madman. The rogue backup is the oldest trick in the book. If you saved the company with a shadow server, you are a god. Policy be damned. When the ship is sinking, nobody asks if the lifeboats are up to code. Commenter 2. I hope you got that immunity deal extended to cover unauthorized data retention before you opened your mouth. But honestly, given that Marcus just nuked the main drive, I think Robert would forgive you for murdering his cat if you brought the data back. I cleared my throat. Robert. He didn't look up. Go away. Just go away. I have a mirror, I said. The room stopped. Marcus froze. The forensic guy, Dave, looked up from his laptop. What? When Marcus cut the budget for the offsite tape backup, I said, staring directly at Marcus, I didn't trust the system. So I set up a cron job. Every Sunday at midnight, the main DB dumps a snapshot to the old DevTest01 server in the basement. It's unauthorized. It's off the books. But it's there. Robert stood up slowly. Sunday? That's only 2 days of data loss. We can reconstruct 2 days from paper manifests. We can survive that. You have a shadow server? Marcus shrieked. That's a violation of the NDA. That's corporate espionage. Oh, shut the hell up. Robert roared. It was the first time I'd ever heard him yell. He turned to the general counsel. Call the police. Tell them to bring handcuffs. Marcus tried to run. I'm not kidding. He actually lunged for the door. But the forensic guy, Dave, who apparently hits the gym when he's not decrypting drives, stepped in front of him and just stood there. Marcus bounced off him like a toddler running into a wall. We're going to the basement, Robert said to me. We went down. Me, Robert, Saul, and Dave. We left Marcus in the boardroom with the general counsel and a security guard. The basement server room is basically a closet. It smells like ozone and dust. I found the old rack, covered in cobwebs. The DevTest01 light was blinking steady green. I hooked up a crash cart, monitor and keyboard. My hands were sweating. If Marcus's cleanup tool had scanned the network for all SQL instances, it might have wiped this too. I logged in. The cursor blinked. And then, I let out a breath I felt like I'd been holding for 2 weeks. It's here, I said. It's clean. Robert grabbed my shoulder. He squeezed it so hard it hurt. Restore it. Now. It took 4 hours. We sat on the concrete floor of the basement while the progress bar crawled across the screen. While we waited, the police arrived upstairs. We heard the commotion, muffled shouting, footsteps. Robert didn't move. He just watched the screen. At 3:30 p.m., the system came back online. The warehouse printers upstairs suddenly roared to life, spitting out the backlog of shipping labels. Robert closed his eyes and breathed. "You saved us." "I did," I said. I stood up, dusting off my pants. "Now, about my severance." "Severance?" Robert looked at me, confused. "Son, I'm firing Marcus." "Obviously. I'm making you VP of operations. I'll double your salary. I'll give you equity. You're the only one who knows how this place works." I looked at him. I looked at the server rack I had built. I thought about the stress, the frame-up, the media trucks on my lawn, and the fact that he was ready to let me go to jail until I forced his hand. "No," I said. Robert blinked. "Triple?" "Robert," I said. "You let your nephew run this place into the ground because he was family. You believed him over me until the math literally proved he was a thief. You let the police raid my house. You let my name get dragged through the mud." I looked at Saul, who was grinning like a shark. "I want the severance package we discussed," I said. 6 months' pay. Plus, I want a public retraction of the statement you made to the press. I want a formal apology issued on the company website stating that I was innocent and instrumental in the recovery. And I want my legal fees paid. And, Saul added, we want a consulting fee for the restoration work performed today. My client's rate is $500 per hour, retroactive to this morning. Robert looked at me. He saw I wasn't bluffing. "Done," he whispered. I walked out of the building at 5 p.m. I saw Marcus being put into the back of a squad car. He saw me. He didn't scream this time. He just looked defeated. His expensive suit was wrinkled, and he was crying. The metadata on the shadow backup proved everything. Not only did it restore the business data, but because it was a snapshot from Sunday, it contained the original transaction logs before Marcus modified them on a live server. It showed the transfers clearly, $50,000 to an account in the Cayman Islands, authorized by Marcus's user profile, authorized from his device ID. He's looking at 10 to 15 years for embezzlement, computer fraud, and destruction of evidence. As for me, I got my check this morning. It's enough to live on for a year comfortably. Logi Corp issued the apology. My reputation is mostly restored, though I'm still the guy who deleted the database to some people on Twitter. My junior admin called me. He's back at work. He's safe. That's the only part of this that makes me feel like a good person. I'm not going back to IT. Not for a while. The stress of holding the keys to the kingdom, knowing that one typo or one malicious boss can ruin your life. I'm done. I've always liked baking. There's a distinct lack of servers in a sourdough starter. And if I burn a loaf of bread, nobody goes to jail. Thanks for the advice. You kept me sane when the world was ending. Boss framed me for theft. I wiped the keys. He tried to frame me for the wipe but accidentally destroyed the data himself. I saved the company with a secret backup, sent him to prison, refused a promotion, and am now unemployed and happy. Edit, to the people asking, yes, I did strip the raid headers on the way out the first time. I regret nothing.